The case of Fortunato Bayotlang came to us in a letter sent through a missionary order in Mindanao. It contains an account of the torture and murder of Fortunato, a salesman for a pharmaceutical firm in Davao. The identity of the author and his religious orders were withheld for obvious reasons. Dear X, in August I began an assigned 6-week language review to acquire some polish and get the unknowns to fall into place. During this time I became involved in a case involving the Tagum Constabulary Police and Davao pharmaceutical firm salesman Fortunato Bayatlang. Fortunato was beaten to death by the Constabulary Secretary Unit, apparently a case of mistaken identity, and his 2 younger brothers, Fernando, who was 15, and Ruperto, who was 8. They were imprisoned. They had been accompanying Fortunato because it was Saturday, and they had no school. I was asked by the Association of Major Religious Superiors to photograph the deceased and gather evidence for them 2 days after the incident occurred. 2 days more passed, and I became concerned for the welfare of the 2 younger brothers, who were still imprisoned in the Tagum stockade. I gathered members of the Justice and Peace Commission of Bishop Reagan and had attempted to get them released and or find out what the military charges of subversion consisted of. They had been released overnight to attend the wake and funeral of their brother under armed escort, so we found them at their family home and humiliated the guards to get him out of hearing range so we could talk to the boys. Fernando, obviously relieved and happy to see us, told 6 plainclothed men curbing his brother's company car, curbing his brother's car, taking them to the PC compound, the Philippine Constabulary, and interrogating them. Fortunato was handcuffed behind his back and continually punched en route to the stockade while being asked over and over, "Where is Dudong?" This is the only question they ever asked any of the 3. At the compound, Fortunato was taken to a small shed less than 30 feet behind the command post building. The 2 younger brothers were manhandled by the 2 men in a parked car less than 10 feet away, while 3 men cared for Fortunato. "Father," Fernando told me, he's talking to the person writing this, Fortunato screamed, begged, pleaded, and his last words were, "If you're going to kill me or must kill me, please shoot me because I've done no wrong." Also, the men mauling him came out 3 times in blood-soaked clothing to get more 2x2s because they were breaking too easily. This, in spite of the fact that the Bayotlangs are civilians and there was no warrant on file, no identification of the arresting officers, no bookings, and no civil liberties. A doctor in a cell over 50 yards away, upon hearing the screams and seeing the bloody clothing, threatened to file charges against the military unless Fortunato was taken to the Davao Provincial Hospital of Tagum. There he was administered first aid, and a hospital employee told me, "We have no facilities, Father, for a man who has been beaten that badly." 3 hours later, he died of a subdural hemorrhage caused by severe beating to the head and the whole body, according to the coroner's report. During the same period, Fernando was taken by his captors to see Fortunato at the hospital. A detour was made through a banana plantation, and he was tied spread eagle around a tree. He was then beaten with clasped, clenched fists, jabbed with a rifle butt and barrel, and struck with a pistol. This is part of a tactical investigation, not for a commando, but for a 15-year-old boy. At present, Fernando is frightened by all strangers and physically runs from them. He also continually extends and retracts his tongue unconsciously, which was the result of another tactical investigation where his tongue was repeatedly pulled, beaten against his teeth, and burned with cigarettes. He now lives with brother JC, MM, in Sigaboy to allay his anxiety. The case of Fortunato Bayotlang and his brothers was thoroughly investigated by the Police Constabulary and the Department of National Defense because Bishop Reagan and Marignal would give them no peace. Military findings were that there is a case and warrants for arrest have been issued, but none of the 6 Constabulary Security Unit members have been apprehended, although they have been frequently seen loitering in the marketplace. The only ordinary police constabulary involved was Fernando's Mahler, who was demoted. When I told Fernando the demotion was given for the constabulary's indiscretion, he replied, "If that's what an indiscretion looks like, I'd hate to see what a mistake looks like."